Now this is a plant that, depending where you are in the world, you may not have heard of, but chances are you've eaten it or used it before. The Achiote, or Annatto tree. I'm in the highlands of Papua New Guinea, and while this plant isn't originally from here, throughout the last few hundred years, it's been spread throughout a lot of the tropical areas around the world, and worked its way into local traditions as well, in a lot of places, including here. Originally, this tree comes from Central and South America, primarily like the Amazon and the rainforest north from there. Now this one has a pretty diverse heritage, and that's because of just how easy this plant is to grow and how easy it is to make it into dye. On the tree, you can see a huge number of these little hairy pods growing, and each one of these has a good 30 to 50 seeds inside, each seed having a thin, red, waxy coating. This coating is full of two chemicals called Bixin and Norbixin. Bixin by itself is an orange color, and Norbixin gives a yellow color, so depending how much of each there is in a given plant, the color can vary a fair bit. Now both of these chemicals are carotenoids, like the colors you find in orange, red, and yellow carrots. Now one of the interesting features about having both of these chemicals present, whereas Bixin can dissolve into fats, but not water, Norbixin can dissolve into water, but not fats so well. So it can still provide color for both oil and water-based uses, which is quite useful for a dye. Now historically, dyes like this could be a very valuable trading commodity. And so when the Spanish came to the Americas and saw these trees and saw how easily the indigenous people could extract a dye from them, they started spreading them all around, all over the place, introducing them to the Inca, to the Aztecs, and that wasn't the end of it. They brought these seeds back to Europe with them, where they started to become a popular dye. And while it was too cold to grow them there, other colonial powers saw them, and over the course of the 15 and 1600s, these got traded to places like Africa, Southeast Asia, the Caribbean, lots of places in the Pacific, and plantations started to spring up in a lot of places as well, including India, Sri Lanka, and Java in what's modern-day Indonesia. So very widely used at the time, and even today it's actually one of the most widely used natural dyes. And I couldn't find any recent figures on this, but in 2000 anyway, there were roughly 10,000 tons of dried seeds produced worldwide. And what is all this dye used for? Well, tons of things actually, but in countries that import Achiote, 70% of it goes to making cheese. And why? That's a pretty good question actually. It seems to have all started in 16th century England in the region of Gloucestershire. Now, they made a popular cheese back then, and you can still buy it today actually, Gloucester cheese. And as you might expect, it was made from the milk of the cows there. Now, cows produce milk year-round, but environmental conditions can vary from year to year, or from place to place, and the quality of the cow's milk will also vary with those conditions. A good summer produces good healthy grass, which makes for richer and creamier milk than would come from a cow in, say, the wintertime, or perhaps a worse grazing area. And grass contains beta-carotenes, which are those orange chemicals found in carrots, and on a particularly good year in the summer, it would produce enough of that it would give a slight orange tint to the cow's milk, which in turn makes for slightly orange cheese. And so naturally people came to associate, okay, this cheese is a bit orange, so that's probably good, high-quality, rich summer cheese. Now, business trickery isn't by any means a modern phenomenon, and cheese producers realized, hey, if we just make it look orange all the time, it'll always look high quality. And Annatto had just recently been introduced into this area, so the result was a success, and cheese producers in a lot of surrounding regions started doing this as well. And that gave us what today are some of the most famous orange cheeses, like Red Leicester or Cheddar. And the rest is history. So it started out as a marketing thing. Now it's just tradition. People just expect these cheeses to be orange. And that's why I've always found it really weird in North America, where you have cheddar and white cheddar kind of treated like separate flavors all the time, when literally the only difference between them is one has Achiote and one doesn't. And I mean, Achiote has a flavor, but it's not strong enough that you'll ever taste it in any of these cheeses. But the list is quite a bit longer than just cheese for foods that get colored with annatto. Some orange, some more an off-white yellow. Things like butter, ice cream, fruit products, oil, drinks, soups, gravy, baked goods, snack foods, cereal, meat products. And this widespread use is unfortunate for some people because while it's perfectly safe for most people to eat this, it is a somewhat common allergy. More common actually than a lot of synthetic dyes. And while unfortunately a lot of the world does just use it for color, Achiote does have a good flavor. and it's kind of hard to describe. I would say earthy, some say peppery. I don't know if I would quite say that, but it's an interesting taste, definitely worth trying. In Latin America, you sometimes get it used with meats or rice dishes, sometimes in drinks, like the Mexican tascalate, which is sort of a corn and chocolate-based drink with other flavors as well. Parts of the Caribbean also use it for flavor, as well parts of Southeast Asia, Vietnam in some of their curries and sauces. Typically, to use this as food, you'll either let the color and flavor infuse into oil with the whole seeds, or use a ground-up achiote paste. And unless you have a really good spice grinder, I would recommend just buying the paste pre-made, because the flavor is best when the seeds are mature, and at that point, those seeds are hard as bullets, and grinding them with a mortar and pestle that's a long and tedious task. But people do it in Mexico, I guess. And its uses don't stop with food either. I mean, one of the English names for this is the lipstick tree. You can guess why. But it also gets used for like hair dye, nail polish, soap, various other paints and dyes. It was once more common as a fabric dye as well, but it's since faded from popularity there because while it holds up well to soap and alkaline and acidic conditions, it fades quite quickly in the sun. But what about their uses traditionally? Well, amongst the indigenous in the Amazon, where it's originally from, you see a wide variety of uses, mostly involved with body, face, or maybe hair paint. And depending on the group, these could have a wide variety of meanings, from warding away sickness and evil spirits, to various rituals, to marking one's tribe, or purely decorative reasons. Here you can see Quechua people from the Ecuadorian Amazon painting their faces with Achiote. They paint these symbols whenever they enter their traditional forest gardens. They also use it in traditional medicine a fair bit, including as a mosquito repellent and as a sunscreen. And here in Papua New Guinea, this tree's been around for a good 400 years, which is more than enough time for it to work its way into a lot of the local traditions, which are as incredibly diverse as the cultural groups are here. And the names for this tree also vary depending which tribe you're talking to, like Gufi'i and Kokomate were the names I was told for these. Unfortunately, like a lot of things in Papua New Guinea, the uses for this plant in a lot of different tribes isn't well documented. But around here at least, the uses do tend to be similar to those used in the Amazon, a lot of body and face paints. For uses that are more specific to Papua New Guinea here, these are popular for coloring bilum bags, and also for coloring tapa cloth. Tapa cloth is a widespread traditional type of cloth used around here, often made into clothing or tapestries and made from the bark of certain types of trees. These are worn by many tribes in Papua New Guinea, with colors and styles differing between different groups. And the most decorative of these traditional tapa clothes will be brought out for the Sing Sings, which are these big annual festivals where different tribes come together in traditional clothes and sing and dance and show off their tribe's distinctive culture. Here you see people going all out with the paints, clothing, and decorations, and Achiote and many other colorings were often used. Well, first in an effort to stand out further, but then many of the designs and colors used eventually became to represent the person's family and community, and since then have been passed down as tradition. And painting with Achiote is easy to do. It's as simple as mashing the seeds and painting it on. So anyway, Papua New Guinea is a very diverse place, and this is just one region. So I'm sure there's other things done with it in other parts, and in other parts of the world that I didn't mention either. For such a simple plant, it's proven to be incredibly useful, or at least incredibly desirable to a lot of people in a lot of the world. But that's all I have for this week. As always, if you have any corrections, suggestions, or perhaps good recipes with Achiote in them, feel free to comment that down below. And if you enjoyed this video and would like to see more, liking and subscribing always really helps me out.
This video is made on behalf of the Goroka Natural Habitat, a place looking to preserve a slice of Papua New Guinean highland forest for education, research, enjoyment, and to teach people to cultivate honey at the same time. A huge thank you to Kelly and I for letting me stay here and supporting this project. If you're looking for a great place to volunteer as a researcher, carpenter, teacher, beekeeper, fish pond specialist, mushroom grower, or any of other numerous other specialties, this is a great place to do it.
So stay tuned for more practical or otherwise interesting tropical plants of Papua New Guinea. Until next time, on Ambling with Sam. And you can see this kind of Central and South American origin in the names it's given. Its scientific name is Bixa orellana. Bixa from the Taino or Caribbean indigenous word for this plant, Orellana, coming from the name of Francisco de Orellana, who was the first explorer known to traverse the entire Amazon River. And then one of its common names used in English and Spanish is Achiote, which comes from the word Achiote, or Achiote, pardon my watch, comes from the Aztec people.